So in this video, I want to do an analysis of a recent talk by Simon Parkes, as interviewed by David Nino Rodriguez. Now, Simon Parkes, he was actually the very first truther that I began to follow right around November 2020, when I was first awakened after the massive election fraud in the United States. Simon was doing regular updates at this time, and I followed him and I posted his updates on my Twitter account, and that actually was what eventually led to my being banned from Twitter. Now, Simon has an organization called Connecting Consciousness, which has local chapters, and it was through Connecting Consciousness that I made the first ever in-person connections with other awakened people, and then with a health freedom group in my area. All this said, I do have some concerns about Simon Parkes as a truther, and I have perceived limitations in Connecting Consciousness group. So let's start off by looking at what Simon has said in his recent interview. So to start with, here is an example of what I think Simon does well. He offers his opinion on something that we're seeing either in current events or past events.
I don't see the first Trump administration as chaotic and the second administration more organized. I don't swallow that. I think the first administration was exactly what it was supposed to be, bringing in bad guys close to Trump who were given the opportunity to change sides.
So with that comment, I think he more or less nailed it, but what he goes on to say about Mike Pence, I believe shows poor judgment.
Yeah, but he was also exposing them back to their backers, the people who were backing them secretly. So with Mike Pence had to make a choice on that fateful day. What was he going to do? Was he going to accept the votes that came in or not? Which side of the fence was he really on? So
as anons, meaning those who understand that there are white hats and that the only communications we have directly from the white hats are in the QDrops. Everything needs to be related to what we are told there, and anything that contradicts what the white hats tell us is not accurate. So we base everything on the QDrops. And this is where we run into a problem with Simon. So as regards his statement on Pence, first of all, if we look at QDrop number 14, we see very clearly that the white hats are able to unrig elections. Just knowing that, we can then deduce that the white hats definitely do not need one person, such as Mike Pence, to decide the fate of the election, nor would they do that, because that would put too much power in one person's hand, and the Democrats could easily accuse Trump and Pence of a coup. Yet, based on what we've seen over the last 4 years, we know that the White Hats did not ever intend for Trump to come back into office in 2021 because they wanted to do a movie to awaken the public using the Biden clown show. So Simon's view on this just reflects poor judgment and also a very common misunderstanding. In all the talks I've ever heard from Simon, I can't recall him ever mentioning the QDrops, which is strange, considering that he has claimed to know what the White Hats are doing. Now, I think there's a reason why Simon has not mentioned Q or the QDrops, and why on his Mighty Networks Connecting Consciousness site, which has many subgroups that members can join, he uses the ignorant and offensive term QAnon for people who follow Q. QAnon is not a term that should be used by any truther. This is a term used by cabal-controlled companies like NPR, BBC, or CBS News. Why does Simon Parkes never talk about Q, in spite of the fact that he claims to be intimately familiar with the White Hats and to have direct information from them? For instance, this is from his January 12th update, where he claimed that many of the people in Hollywood have approached the White Hats to change sides.
And what's not well known is that over the last, particularly the last 4 years, quite a lot of bad actors have jumped ship. And they've made overtures to the White House. And in some of those cases, those people have been taken straight on In other cases, they've been put on a sort of a probationary period or a holding pattern to see how they do. And in other cases, they've been flatly refused.
Now, early on in 2020 and 2021, I would hear Simon talk about these things, that he knew what the White Hats were doing, he had insider information, and I was really excited about this. And that's why I kept watching his updates, because he apparently had exclusive information and insider access that other people didn't have. And I believed this until I read the QDrops. I think everyone needs to read the QDrops or watch a video that gives you an overview of them, because the QDrops are the only information we have from the White Hats. And in the QDrops, the White Hats themselves tell us that nobody has intel, folks. Nobody has insider information. They tell us in QDrop 60, operators never divulge. In QDrop 513, they tell us there are no private communications ever. No communications outside of this platform. And any claims that contradict this are fake news. And QDrop 1339 tells us that any claims that people are insiders or have insider contacts are false. So, seeing all this, we can make a guess that the reason why Simon Parkes does not talk about Q and never mentions the QDrops is because they condemn him. They point out that he's a fraud, or at the very least mistaken, when he claims to have insider information. Nobody has insider information, is what the White Hats are telling us. Okay, now Simon goes on to comment about what is coming, and he is completely wrong-headed, and after he says this, I will explain why.
So, do they just pull the plug? I mean, what do they do? Like, I mean, is it going to be a banking collapse?
No, they retire. All the baddies will retire on all their.
But they got to. Well, we got to see justice, Simon. People got to see justice.
But do we? You tell me why we've got to see justice.
People will demand it.
Okay, I want to point out here that what Simon is saying is incredibly stupid. It's not only incredibly stupid, but there's not a single other truther who has ever said anything like this, that we're basically not going to see justice. It makes no sense whatsoever for many reasons, but let's go on now and hear more of what he has to say. And then after that, I'll explain why this is so incredibly stupid. It's hard to believe he's actually saying this.
People will demand it, at least here in America. We know who the bad actors have been exposed. People want to see justice. We know about Obama. We know about Hillary Clinton. Everyone knows now.
Right, okay, listen. I mean, I'm agreeing with you. I'm totally agreeing with you, but I'm just, from an ex-politician's point of view and the reality of the world, let me put it this way, because I'm trying to interject world politics. America, up until a few days ago, was the policeman of the world. Not anymore. Trump's made that clear. However, when an American diplomat goes into a meeting, he or she is in a position to really influence that meeting. If you say that an American president, no matter who it is, was corrupt, was into pedophilia, and you do all that, no other country in the world will be told what to do by America. If America goes into a room, they'll say, don't you lecture us. Your president was found guilty of this, 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 and this. And it's for that reason that the truth that you're asking about won't ever come out.
I'm looking at Pam Bondi right now. She has put charges against Letitia James and who is it? Letitia James and Hochul, right? So it looks to me like they're already moving forward with investigations, charges.
Yep.
I seem to think that this looks like it's going in a direction that there's going to be people that are arrested.
Oh, there will, but not the very top. Not people that the whole world look at Great Britain.
You don't see like an Obama or Clinton being arrested.
Look at Great Britain. Your audience will be very clear of what the Queen of England was or was not responsible for. When did she go to court? When was she proved guilty? So here's my point. Somebody who is an icon, not just of a country, but of a culture, isn't going to be brought down because, and I've used this with my own group. I've talked about the candy store, where I've said there's a manager in a candy store with 12 staff. If you go in and you arrest the manager, half the staff don't come to work, the candy store doesn't make any money, and it collapses. But if you just go in and you say to the candy store manager, oh, you're being transferred, you're being retired, and here's the new man, the staff carry on, you still make money, the business operates. So whilst I understand, and I really do, that everybody wants justice and truth, and so do I, but the reality is that at certain level, it's not going to happen because the damage to the United States would be irreparable. And that's why the Queen of England never faced a single charge. There are a number of key people which couldn't be removed because they were so high profile. They were so high profile. But there are other people who are not so high profile who I absolutely tell you were executed at a courts martial. And it was done in 20 minutes. There was a 20-minute court martial.
Really?
20-minute court martial, 20-minute, next one in. That's
so
not
this already happened, and we'll never know about it.
All right. If the audience knew about it, what would they do? What would they do with that? How would it help them? It wouldn't help them. What it would do is destroy
Validated.
America. It would destroy America's prestige in the world.
So Simon is essentially claiming that the topmost criminals, meaning the most serious and evil ones, will not be publicly exposed, only the lower level ones. And that the reason for this is that it would make the United States look bad if the topmost criminals, such as presidents, were exposed publicly. So again, I want to point out, nobody else is saying this. There's not a single other truther, podcaster, anybody who's ever said this except for Simon. Now, Simon is not claiming that this is intel that he's gotten from insider sources. It sounds like it's his opinion, but nobody else shares this opinion. And that should make us concerned. So one of the first and most important criticisms of what Simon is saying is that in a restored constitutional republic, where the government operates in a transparent way, we do not and cannot hide the truth from people. We can never say, look, we've got to hide the truth from you because it doesn't make our government look good. No, folks, we can never do that. We'll never have transparency if we do that. In fact, we would be a banana republic if we were just taking out people behind the scenes and executing them and never telling the people about it. It would be a complete contradiction to a transparent constitutional republic. Therefore, we can never be doing that. Now, some of you may be saying, well, we already did it, though. We took these guys out, like Hillary, she's gone, and we never told anybody. The government didn't tell us. Or, as Simon said, they took out the Queen, and they didn't tell us about her. It's not over yet. We have to do the exposure operation before we do the public arrests. The arrests are coming. The exposure has to be first so people know why these guys are being arrested. In order for humanity to awaken, humanity has to understand the entirety of what has gone on. They don't have to know all the last sordid, horrific details. They have to know there has been a global crime syndicate that has been involved in trafficking children and horrendous crimes. In fact, if we go to Q tells us that that is how humanity is going to unite. It will unite because of the crimes against children that are exposed. Well, how can you expose all these crimes against children if you are not exposing who coordinated all of this? You can't. It all has to come out or it just doesn't make any sense. The fact is, it's not just the United States that's involved in this crime. The cabal is worldwide. It didn't start in the United States. Every nation is involved in this crime. So we're not just exposing one United States president or a handful. We're exposing presidents or prime ministers in nearly every nation in the world. So there's no basis for claiming that the United States would be uniquely harmed when all of this is going to fall. And the other part of it is that Q has told us several times that nobody escapes from this everybody is held accountable, and everybody will see justice. And this, to me, means publicly, because let's do a thought experiment now and consider what would happen if this justice was all done privately behind the scenes and most of America didn't know about it. So the first thing to consider is that we are all aware that we live in a highly divided society right now, where there are some people who do not see the truth of what is really happening, and there are others that do. And this makes for an extremely stressful situation. We could call it a matrix reality. Well, if the truth did not all come out, we would basically have that same highly divided society on and on and on indefinitely into the future, right? Because we would know, we're fully awake, would know about the crimes of the big top people like Obama and Hillary and the Queen of England and the King of England and Klaus Schwab and all the rest. But if most of the people were not aware of those people being criminals, how would we proceed as a society? So to take just one example, how would we ever teach history in this country if most of the people didn't know the truth about these historical figures? We couldn't. We could not teach history. Also, we couldn't teach politics. And there's a lot of other things we couldn't teach because we'd have two entirely different groups of people with entirely different views wanting to teach these things in entirely different ways. And if we lean to the majority, that would be the people who want to teach the lies because they don't know the truth. So we would have a continual, very stressful conflict going on forever. We cannot have that. It's untenable. So that in itself should tell you that this is not a plausible scenario. As well, we have to realize it's not just these top figures who are icons of our culture. Every single industry, every single institution in our nation is corrupt. What does it mean if we say we have to maintain our pride as the United States, as a nation, when the Federal Reserve is totally criminal? When the entire medical system is criminal, when the whole media is criminal, when the whole education system is corrupt, when all of Hollywood is corrupt. All of this cannot be hidden, folks. And if you don't get that, you're not using your critical thinking skills. This stuff has to come out. And it's not going to make the United States look bad because it's been happening all around the world. And secondly, because we, through Trump and the White Hats who are centered in the United States, are the salvation of the world. We will be known throughout history as the ones that saved humanity. The United States will have that honor.
I am your justice. And for those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution. I will totally obliterate the deep state.
There are many other reasons why what Simon is saying doesn't make any sense. For instance, once people find out that the Federal Reserve was a criminal organization, and that Congress allowed the Federal Reserve to be created in 1913, they'll have to realize that Congress was corrupt and criminal. And that will implicate everybody who was in office at that time. We are even now seeing signs that widespread corruption is about to be revealed in Congress. What about when crimes against children come out? Who organized that? People are going to demand to know. They're going to be so angry. There will be people crying out on the streets for justice. When people start doing their research on the cabal, no matter where they start, they're going to have to find out that it was organized at a high level. And so if we only arrest people at a lower level, then everyone's going to wonder, why are we hiding the people at the upper level? And that's going to look like a crime to be hiding those. And finally, saying that the truth is not going to come out because we have to protect the ego of the nation, basically, is just a highly unspiritual, low-level, low-vibration kind of thing to say. And it is not something that anybody who claims to be a spiritual person should be saying. Okay, now continuing, there are many other examples in this interview and other podcasts that Simon has done where he claims to have insider information or intel. Once again, he cannot have insider information because the White Hats do not do it that way. So let's look at a few more things that he's claiming he knows.
All right, there. Look at Gina, the ex-CIA, who was caught in Frankfurt. Okay. And we lost some good men in that attack, okay? She was transferred to Gitmo, and halfway there, she agreed to jump ship. So the airplane turned around halfway to Gitmo and came back again.
How does Simon know what happened on a White Hat's flight to Gitmo with the head of the CIA? He doesn't. He can't. I don't know if he's lying or he's getting his information from a fake source, but this is not something that we can know. Now, even though Simon's Connecting Consciousness organization is ostensibly inclusive of all spiritualities, one finds that his emphasis is on what I call sci-fi spirituality, which is not really spirituality. It's just a belief in extraterrestrials. That is not spirituality, that is metaphysics. And here he says something rather strange to David Nino Rodriguez.
I've got to stop you here. We got to go back to this statement you said that he may not be human, Elon Musk. I think that takes me to Val. Is it the Val Thor? Elon is not human. What do you mean?
That his history, you couldn't follow his history as you would through, if you went and got a lot of birth certificates and you checked it back, you'd have a problem with his.
So what are you implying?
Well, I'm not going to say anything, but I will say about Val Thor. There have been, in the United States of America and in Russia, non-human advisors for a number of years, both good and bad. And those people really are different. But then you have another group of people who, they pass for humans. They look all right, and I've met some of them who were, clearly not human, but they had two hands and two legs. But the reality is that this is just a spiritual war. It's not just a spiritual war. It's a war that takes in a lot more than that. Because the battle being fought on this planet decides what happens in other realms as well. So there's been a great interest in this planet. And there are a lot of intelligences, both good and bad, that want to, help the side they've chosen. And it was because of the gifting of quantum technology, which we shouldn't have at this time in our history, but that was gifted to the good guys, which allowed the good guys to outthink the best supercomputers that the baddies had. There are three main supercomputers,
So obviously all of this that Simon is saying begs the question, how does he know all this? How does he know that Elon doesn't have a human history? How does he know that these off-worlders have been working with various governments around the world and that there are bad ones and there are good ones and that what we do here affects other planets? How does he know any of this? So I've already explained why there is no insider information. Nobody is getting information from the White Hats. Is Simon getting this information from off-worlders? Is he getting it through channeling? Or is he just making all of this up and it's a bunch of bullshit? I think that he should tell us how he's getting this information, because by not saying it and just claiming that he knows, that is a red flag. It's not transparent. It comes across as authoritative. It comes across as, well, I'm a special person and I have more information than you do, so you have to depend on me to know what's going on in the world. Now, many people find this topic of life beyond our planet to be quite fascinating. But just because you're interested in it doesn't mean that you have to disempower yourself and make someone else the authority figure, someone else to tell you what is true. I believe all of life is a sacred mystery, and spiritual life and metaphysics are available to all of us. This idea that there is lots of life outside of our planet, but that life is only communicating through certain privileged people who then convey the truth to us, that is totally unacceptable to me. And if that's how you're seeing things, I hope you'll reconsider, because I think that's disempowering to you. If there is truth out there, it needs to be truth that is available to all of us. That is what is in line with spiritual growth and the Great Awakening.